Right, okay. Welcome to today's seminar on Greenmeadow Community Farm. If I hand over to Neil to start this off.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Apologise on behalf of Keith Rutherford, who's not very well today, so he's keeping his germs to himself. Members will be fully aware of the significant financial difficulties and pressures that the Council has faced in terms of determining this year's budget. And as a result of saving mitigations being proposed to reduce the subsidy which supports the farm. So the proposal is a subsidy reduction of £200,000, which was proposed as part of the Council's budget proposals for this year. So earlier this year, Cleaner Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee agreed to establish a task and finish group to look at ways in which that £200,000 could be saved. But some narrative there around the expenditure and the estimates related to the farm. It's probably easier if we look at this as a table. So the expenditure, the estimated budget for this year for the farm is just over £800,000. The estimated income is estimated at £476,000. Therefore, there's a gap of £300k. In addition, there are specific saving measures identified for the farm for this year around the cafe to break even to the tune of just under £28,000. So if we take into account the £200,000 budget mitigation and subsidy reduction, the estimate for the farm, the council budget for the farm this year is at £103,000. The bottom line is that there's a £300k subsidy that goes into the farm year on year. In addition to the gap in terms of the subsidy, there's additional £30,000 spent each year on repairs and maintenance and statutory testing at the farm. So that gap, that financial gap, gets bigger and bigger as we go forward. So the member seminar today really is to provide an opportunity for members to consider the outcomes of the task and finish group that was established by the Scrutiny Committee, and obviously for opportunity for members to ask questions at the end of the presentation. As I mentioned earlier, members of the Task and Finish Group were established and met 5 times over a 3-month period following their formation in January. They received information around a brief history of the farm and finances and a better understanding with current arrangements whereby this farm sits within social care and housing service area. They also received a range of information about the benefits that the farm provides and delivers. 2 chief officers were asked to present to the Task and Finish Group, Keith Rutherford, Social Care and Housing, and Dermot McChrystal from Education, again to identify the benefits that are derived from their use of the farm, and also whether or not those services could be delivered elsewhere. A number of people from various organisations and stakeholders were invited to attend the Task and Finish Group, again to identify the benefits that they derive from using the farm, services at the farm, and also to pose a question whether or not they could be delivered elsewhere. I've got to say the Task and Finish Group worked tremendously hard, worked very well as a group, and asked a range of different questions and asked for an additional significant amount of information. All of that information was provided to them, so they were able to come to some outcomes and determine their recommendations. I think it's fair to say from the research and the evidence provided, it became apparent that the farm would be unable to continue in its current form with a £200,000 less in its budget. So the Task and Finish Group, their final outcomes determined that the majority of beneficiaries are community groups and volunteers. It was evident that the benefits provided could be accommodated within different services or service models or at different locations. They could recognise that there was an imbalance between the benefits and costs of local for local volunteers and community groups, which appear to be highly valued but potentially low cost in requirement. There were 7 recommendations were made by the by the Task and Finish Group to the Scrutiny Committee, which was held on the 28th of March. So specifically, the Task and Finish Group recommendations are as follows: to retain the buildings and the land to provide a community facility, explore the possibility of using the site to locate council activities that are currently situated elsewhere, allowing the council to reduce its property portfolio and make potential savings. Number 2, dispose of the surplus pockets of land, and strongly recommend that if that land is sold off, to reinvest the income from that sale back into the farm. Recommendation 3 was to implement a revised staff structure, which was put forward by the farm director, which would deliver savings of about £48,000. However, this would result in redundancy and or redeployment of staff being required. Number 4, review the operation of the catering facility, enabling the provision of minimal catering facilities such as vending machines for drinks and snacks. So moving away from a fully functioning cafe. Number 5, explore the opening hours during spring and summer and or opening only on weekends during the autumn or the winter, whilst maintaining availability within the building for a community hub for current and potential future groups. Consider changing the governance arrangements for the farm, including the operation of the shadow board and the role of the executive member within the board. And lastly, consider changing the budget heading the farm sits under from social care and housing to neighbourhoods planning and public protection. I think that the final sentence there is important, that these recommendations that would be made at this stage have not been costed or fully assessed in terms of their impact. Okay.
Thanks. So thank you for that presentation. Today's really a chance for members to have an input into where we go next following those recommendations. I think, as Neil said, I think one thing that we've asked to do is that those recommendations are costed, so we can see where the remaining gap is, to see where we are, to see where we get next. I would like to say, certainly as a member myself, I greatly value the work of the farm, and I think we should start by saying that. And the work that the staff at the farm do. No one is seeking to diminish that. It provides an excellent community resource, and one that I hope we can maintain. What we can't avoid, though, is the financial situation that is being imposed on us, and the gap that remains between the money that the farm brings in and the money that it costs each year. So the question really is how we try and resolve that gap. I think the Task and Finish group did an excellent job starting that work, and those 7 recommendations are all worth looking into. They're all worth costing to see where we are once those recommendations are costed. So as I say, today's meant to be the chance to give members a voice and impact, a chance to make an impact and to ask questions that can then be taken forward as part of the work that we do. But I really want us to get to a situation when we're not back here in 1, 2, 4, 6 years' time asking the same questions. How can we try and resolve that situation to give the farm the best chance of thriving in the future? So with that, I'll hand over to members' questions. Peter, do you want to go?
I'm coming in under Stuart Ashley's thing, but it doesn't matter. Obviously, I chaired the Task and Finish group, and it was a very tight timetable for us to look at this, and as Anthony has just said, we didn't cost it. What doesn't come out in the presentation is this was a cross-party Task and Finish group, and there was unanimous support from the Cleaner and Greener Committee to the recommendations, but there was overwhelming support that we want to maintain this community farm, and the word community is really important there. It's a community hub, and overwhelmingly we want to maintain it. We were given a strict remit with this task and finish group to look at this mitigation of 200k. So that was our focus. Now, we've come up with a number of suggestions there, but nowhere are we suggesting that there should be any threat, long-term threat to this farm. I'm just trying to convey that, and Ron Burnett was on the committee, on the task and finish group with me. So I'm just trying to convey our view is we've got to do our best. This farm needs to be retained. That's the message I'd like to give to the group here today. It is difficult in terms of these recommendations. Whether they'll amount to 200k, we don't know. But the flavour of, well, the unanimity of my committee was we want to retain this farm. What we've come up with really is we would need to scale back the operation a little bit, but overall we want to keep it as a community hub.
Thank you, and we recognise the work that you led on that, and we're grateful for that, and recognise the strong feelings about the value of the community facility going forward. So thank you. Anyone else want to come in at this point? Faye, and then Rob.
I'd just like to ask, are we in touch with friends of the farm who are doing their utmost to make lots of activities happen to try and put some money back into the farm and ultimately save the farm? They're doing things like cinema evenings where you could take your car, all sorts of things. And I think we need to be keeping them informed about what's happening, because I think as county councillors and the council, we have now got this terrible reputation of being the people who want to steal this jewel away from Torfaen. And I think, you know, the more money we take out of it, the more that it looks uncertain, the more uncertain our jobs as county councillors are going to be within that area, because it is a jewel in the crown, and I think it's awful that we're going down this road of having to take money off it. I understand we're in this difficult financial position, thanks to the government, but I still think that it's something we have to go to our way to save. And the other thing that I've heard, which I wanted an answer for, was that private companies don't like working with county councils. Is that true? Because I just wonder, is there any way we could get private companies perhaps in there to sort of promote more money?
Certainly on your first point, I think, yeah, what this has done is highlight the well of support there is for the farm. And if we can work with those groups, then I'd certainly recommend that, and I'll make sure that officers do work with the groups to take advantage of the strong feeling in the community. One of the issues I think we've found with private companies before is they don't want to run things according to either our terms and conditions, or to the extent that we want a farm. They would want to run something far more reduced from that, and that's obviously something that we've come into conflict with before. But certainly on your first point about how we work with the people who support the farm, I think that's a valuable point going forward. Of course, my message to people who sign a petition, for example, is please do go along and support the farm, because the more people who go through the gates and who pay an entrance fee, the better those figures look. So please do go along there, especially in the spring and the summer where there's lots going on. I'll certainly be along there with my kids as much as I can, and when we have visitors. And I'd encourage everyone to do the same, because the more people visit the farm and have a good day out there, the better it is for the farm and for everyone.
Not just to confirm, I suppose, as I said earlier, part of the presentation, the Task and Finish group did meet with a range of stakeholders, and we continue to liaise with those, including Friends of the Farm.
Come back in. One of the things that didn't come out in the recommendations was a lot of the groups that use the farm are people from with disabled background. And we did make the point quite clear that if we were going to make any major changes at the farm, there should be a full public consultation in line with the European Human Rights Commission guidelines. And that was another issue we discussed in terms of going forward. So if we were thinking about making major changes, I want it on record that there must be a full public consultation.
Thank you, Chair. In regarding the disposal of the land, I appreciate that that is going to be reinvested into the farm going forward. Knowing that there's going to be other stakeholders or departments possibility moving into the farm and therefore reducing the property portfolio and thereby saving the revenue. Is that money going to be, which is going to be saved, going to be reinvested in the farm as well? So you've got two pots of money, if you like, going into the farm, or is it just the revenue that is gained by the selling of the two parcels of land? And in addition, I appreciate there's a fair amount of figures in this report as well. It would have been handy to have seen, if like, the amount of savings that, or should I say, anticipated savings, if you like, knowing that we're going to be selling off, if you like, parcels of land, etc., which basically this exercise is going to save the council going forward.
So that's recommendations 1 and 2, both of which would need to be costed, and then we can have that conversation. Obviously, there will be capital receipts. Our previous policy as a council has been to reinvest capital receipts in 21st century schools. Obviously, we'd need to consciously make a change or an exception to that if we were to want to specifically reinvest it, but that's one option we could take, for example. And then the other potential changes would be in revenue, if more revenue was to come in from other uses of buildings or land, then we could have that discussion. Maybe that's a discussion we need to have at a later time when they've been costed. So we'll take Colette and then Ron and Steve. Jason.
So my question is really very much the same as Councillor Kemp's. Just asking, could you clarify where the two pieces of land are in Llanrafan, please? And have we had any sort of valuations on these at all in the past?
So the two pieces of land is known as the land opposite the farm. So there's about 40 acres, which is approximately 40 acres, which is opposite the farm. And then there's an additional 10 to 12 acres, which is near Llanrafan, the boating lake. I think it's, I didn't see this, but I think it's near the boating lake. And like I said, it's about 10 to 12 acres of land there.
Can you clarify, when you say near the boating lake, how near the boating lake? Is it actually on the boating lake site, or where exactly is it?
No, it's the other side of the boating lake.
I'm sure we can with more specific maps of the exact plots of land we're talking to. If that's possible.
My other question, have they been valued in the past, please? Have we had valuations on in the past for any reason?
Several years ago, I can recall there was a valuation done. So we can obviously that would need to be updated in any case. So we could certainly look into that and then report back to members. Would that be fair? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as Peter said, and we put many hours into this, and we met so many people, all the users, and the word investment, that's what the farm really needs. I mean, it's been run down for years now. There's been no investment on it. Nothing new's gone into the farm. And when we met with some schools and got some information off them, schools don't use it as much as they should, because the simple reason is if they hire a coach, they'll go off somewhere further afield because the kids don't want to come down there because there's nothing there for them, you see. And I'll just say one, Kevin Mabley farm, the 3 soft plays, and that's what the farm is lacking, things for children to do. They want to see the animals, no problem at all, but they want some things to the soft play in there, more equipment, and it's to hold them there. I would think in half an hour, 3/4 an hour, you've seen the animals, that's it, and you've got the cafe. But the word investment, and this is what actually the farm desperately needs, and I think that's what's going to keep it going, is more investment. The talk we know about selling off land, again, you just explained all that, but the vital word is investment, and we need to invest. And I'm sure, without question, we could build the farm back up, but not as it is, because they'll go to Bristol. I know Stuart, I forget when they Stuart, you've got your favourite you've got your favourite place in Bristol, and it would take a coach over there. If they've got to hire a coach, why go to stay in Cwmbran? They go to Bristol, Kevin, they've got to pay for the coach, and there's much, much more to do, and the kids have found that out. On weekends, we see it. If there's an activity, even my wife said the other day, good Lord, she did this, and people down there. Yeah, it is, but it's got to be all week to make it pay for itself, but we've got to get people in there. And again, we talked about the cafe there, and the three of us were sat in there one day, and it was very cold, very expensive, and this is what we found. And if you want to be sat in there when it's cold and uncomfortable, you're not going to stay in there long either. And the cost of the cafe as well, is it breaking even or not? It's quite expensive, some of the food in there, and if you're taking 2 or 3 kids though, you're not going to buy food, and they're going to take your own lunch packs. So that's got to be looked at as well. But the key word here is investment.
Who did I have in next? I had Steve in next.
I got 3 questions. The first one is, can we as a council use some of our organisations within the council to use it a lot more, the Greenmeadow farm? That's the first one. Now, under the future generations, I was astonished to read in the local paper how Cwmbran High has got a bit of a bad reputation at the moment, and to find 14-year-old children are trying to raise funds to save the farm. You know, I mean, come on, this is why we're here, to save that for the future generations. And the third part is, we should be protecting open spaces, not selling it off.
Jason, shall I go next?
Chair, my question is perhaps a lot more fundamental. I was on the scrutiny committee last year and I asked the question a few times, and I think my issue is the fact that the council simply doesn't know what it wants the farm to be. Are we saying it's going to be an educational asset, in which case it would be unfair of the council to expect a return on it, and we use it and develop it as an educational asset? Do we want it to be a tourist attraction? In which case we should look to work with outside partners who would invest in the ilk of Keffin Mabley or Folly Farm or those type of ventures. Do we want it to be a productive farm? I know they've toyed with turkeys and things in the past. So until we come to a decision on what we want the farm to be when it grows up, we're very much just flapping in the wind, trying to do all things to all people. And I think it needs to be a lot more focused in terms of what you want it to be, so we can get the most out of it. And then, as Ron said, invest in the right areas to make it a success.
3 questions there. Do you want to come back to any of those points in particular, Neil, before I come in?
Only the one, I suppose, in terms of the council's use of the farm, in terms of bringing more investment in, etc. I suppose we can certainly explore that opportunity and see whether or not the facilities that the farm has to offer can be utilised more by ourselves as a council. Just an observation in terms of the question there, really. I think that's hit the nail on the head, really. It's really, I suppose, what does the council, what do you want the farm to be seen as going forward?
The point Ron makes about investment is I think a good one. It's a chicken and egg situation, isn't it? If you invest more in something, you'll get more return, but of course you've got to find the money to invest in the first place. Hopefully this land will be part of unlocking that sort of curate's egg. I agree with things like soft play, things that bring people in there, and also encourage them to spend more time and money when they're there as well is key. The point Steve makes about using organisations more, I think Neil's covered, about children raising funds to save the farm. Again, as I said to Faye, that shows the strength of support that there is for the farm within the community. It also shows a great sort of positive side to young people that sometimes doesn't get reported enough, that they are willing to give up their time and their energies to try and protect things that they value. And the point about protecting open spaces is important too. I think that's an important role that the farm sort of has as a green lung in the centre of Cwmbran as well. So we value those points. I think Jason makes a good point about what do we want the farm to be. The educational aspect, the tourist attraction, certainly the visitor attraction is something that I think people hold as very important. My question that I've asked before and I ask again now is is would a little bit of outside expertise be beneficial to helping us answer that question? Either commercial expertise about how lots of attractions are very good at making sure income is maximised by people who come through the doors, for example. On the other side of it, is there sort of some particular agricultural expertise that could come and help the farm to make the most of those assets? Would some targeted investment in the short term help bring in the expertise to turn those things around in the long term and give the staff at the farm more support? That's a valid question, I think. So, yeah, sure.
The issue for me as well is I don't see anyone at the council who's got this bull by the horns, pardon the pun, and is saying I own the farm and I own its outcome. If you ask this chamber today what should we do with it, you're going to get 20 different responses. We need a person to coalesce around who's got this issue full time, who owns the issue, who's able to set the direction, and that we can all then come around it whether we agree with it or not and say this is how the farm is going to go forward. Until we get to that point, I think we're floundering. Thank you.
I think Jason's rather hit the thing because I've been the Shadow Board Chair for the last 18 years and I also did the first scrutiny on it, and I think you hit the thing about how much it's going to cost and what it does as a job. And if you look at the other community farms, Kevin Mulby, place up in Bracken, you look at what it does and you've got to nail it. And I think this is the problem with it. We've had the vision of Bob Wellington Company setting it up. And I think when I went to evidence, that's what it was set up for. It was set up as a demonstration farm, community resource and tourist attraction. That was its original job. Now we're into the age of global emergencies, we're in the age of education projects. We really need to decide as a council what this thing is going to do. I've got very strong views about what I think it ought to do, but everybody in this room might totally disagree with me. I suspect they might. I took my grandson round, like you've taken your kids round a few weeks ago for his birthday. I know the one thing, he pointed at every animal on that thing there, and he wouldn't know what a global ecological emergency was. But it's a very fine resource for that. We've got a lot of staff on there who've got experiences. I'm not sure if I agree with you about going outside. I think we've got people in the council, we've got people in this area who are perfectly good about it. I want to see the governance nailed because we've sat down for 2 scrutiny committees and this one, and these guys have done a really good job, to be quite frank. They nailed me on the ball. And I sat there and I gave them what for, and they gave me what for back, including Ronnie. We had quite a useful discussion about it. But at the end, governance, what it's for, and you're right about it, and Ron's right about it, we need to nail this because, as I said at another meeting when we're talking about future generations, and that's the thing you've got to look at. What is it for? It costs a lot of money, and it doesn't need to cost a lot of money, really. If we look at it, focuses a real big opportunity here to do something 30 years, future generations, that's 30 years, and you can do the global warming, tree planting. There's a lot of things I'd like to see. I'll give you chapter and verse afterwards. I'm sure there's a few people at the back that will as well. But somewhere we've got, which is a green parkland, it's got a lot of opportunities with it. You can do something for communities. It does involve animals, does involve horticulture. I'm doing it, global warming. You've got the things there. Needs the investment. We need to sell something off. And we've got some very talented staff inside that farm and outside. And it's a wonderful hub. I've done them all, haven't I? But it needs that lot. It's something that the communities wanting to involve itself with. So you've got a wonderful community. And I did play Father Christmas this year. Again, and my mate Dennis Christmas is wonderful. He had a hot day off, and I went in there. We had 200 kids in there, and I was absolutely knackered, to be quite honest, after that lot. So you see kids in there, adults in there. It's a wonderful resource. It's expensive, but there are ways of making it pay, because you go and have a look at... Ronnie knew I was going to do this. St Walburg's Farm and the City Farms in Bristol, and those places can run, but they need input from the community, and that's the one thing we're missing. We're paying for it. It's out there. We need to bank that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As a member of the Cleaner and Greener Oversight and Scrutiny Committee, I was offered a place on the Task and Finish group as well. However, I withdrew from that because a number of reasons. One, because of the classification of the farm under social services category, I felt was wrong, because I felt we would be forced to make a choice between the farm and deciding whether we were going to sack social and care workers. So I felt that was wrong. So I think that Peter's group has done a fantastic job within the time frames as well, because they were asked to conclude this by May, which again I felt was inappropriate. Just to pick up on a couple of points that have been made, Councillor Burnett mentions the lack of investment that's gone on in the farm. When I visited it, it's clear that there hasn't been the capital investment on the farm that should have been there. The three things that were pointed out to us when we visited were the stabling block had fallen into disrepair, which is where they keep new animals in quarantine when they first arrive on the farm. The water feature, the dragon, is in disrepair, and in fact half of the children's playground has gone into disrepair. So it does require significant capital investment. The parameters, though, to pick up on a couple of points that you've made about how, and I agree that there should be a strong focus on where this needs to go in the future. And there needs to be a strong direction and decisions taken in what the future outcome is going to be in terms of what we intend to deliver. Because at the moment it's a bit of a mismatch. There's trying to be too many things to too many different people, and it's not satisfying all of those fully. The other concern I had with the time frame was that when we put it up to tender, there was a potential interested party, but they wanted the subsidies to continue going forwards from this council. Now, obviously, this is something that the council didn't want to do, is to continue subsidising the farm on an ongoing basis for years to come. For this to stand alone in its own right, it needs to be run as an independent business, with a strong focus on self-financing and using the money from the sale of the land to secure the future of the farm going forward. You've mentioned yourself, Leader, that you did not want to be here in 2 years, 4 years, having the same discussion. Given that the parameters have now changed compared to what it was when it was put out to tender, i.e. at that time, there were constraints upon usage and prohibition on the sale of the land, of the farm, but now that we, as a council, are considering the sale of some of the assets to fund the rest of it, will you please clarify whether we're going to go down the route of putting this into a leisure trust type arrangement, or whether it would be, because it needs to be segregated, I feel, from the main council pot. In the past, sale of land has gone in, the money's gone into a general pot. Now, I understand in this case that you're going to protect that money to secure the future of the farm, but long term, we need to either look to putting it back out to tender. We need to do more with potential partners like Natural Resources Wales to see if there's other ways that we could derive further additional income from that site, and they could advise us on that. But whether we need that expertise that you mentioned, I would be inclined to agree with you, because no disrespect to Councillor Ashley, but I think the shadow board that's been there is not adequate to take the farm forwards, because it needs to be run as a self-financing operation on a business model.
I'd just like to answer one or two questions put by councillors earlier as what the farm is, and the farm is definitely an educational facility, because not only does it work with children who can't be educated in normal schools, not only from our county but other counties, children with behaviour problems as well as those with special needs, where they can sort of get back to the earth and really find themselves again. But every time I go up there, and often in the holidays, the queues are right back down the road with my toddler grandchildren. I'm amazed at what we all learn by the time we come out, from the tiny eggs that we can hold, to seeing the new chicks that are hatched, to watching the milking of goats, to taking part in the milking of goats. What we learn is amazing, and families go there, and especially toddlers, and they, you know, the mums learn how to parent often, or are taught other things they perhaps didn't know before. And there's so much about the environment, from the bees to, you know, sustainable products. I think it's an amazing educational facility as it is. And I've also heard of many teachers this year who say, oh gosh, I've heard about the farm, we'll be visiting there this year. Very local people who visited in the past but maybe haven't for a year or two. It's just an amazing resource, and there are days when the queues are outside the farm. The queues are so long.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, what Stuart was saying earlier, when we took it back to scrutiny, and you got a bit of a gruelling. You did, didn't you? Councillor Bevan just said, and I brought the subject that the purpose of the shadow board, what does it actually do? I mean, it's been there for years and years and years, and it's been in the shadow for years and years and years, and I've never seen actually what it's actually done. And this is where we have to go from here today. The governance of the farm seriously looked at. We can sit here all day, we all got our opinions, but the thing is, the governance of the farm, where do we go from here? And the shadow board, I don't know who's on it, it meets now and again, but there hasn't been any purpose to it. And I think that's why it's gone down over the years, gone into neglect, and there's never been no proper governance on it. And that's what we look at now, today, is what's going to happen with the shadow board. It's really got to be looked at, rehashed, maybe put it in different terms, but it's all down to the governance and how we're going to maintain and get this funded.
Yeah, as a member of the Shadow Board, I agree, Ron. We haven't really done anything. We do have regular meetings, and we just have updates. We look at the budget, how much has been spent going forward. But, you know, it does need to be looked at, the Shadow Board. We also need to look at what does it want to be. We do sell turkeys and eggs and things, so it is a selling thing. There is options of having a garden centre where we can grow our own plants. It is educational. The Stick Man is very, very successful with all the schools in the area, and they do an awful lot of good as well for the disabled children. But I do agree.
Ron, I actually agree with you. No, I agree with you, because at the end of the day, the Shadow Board is not a term I want ever to hear, to be quite honest. If we need to convert it either into something else, charity, limited company, whatever you want, it needs some form of firm governance. And if you've ever heard me in the Resources Committee about partnerships, you need to know what the animal is. At the moment, the Shadow Board, it's served very well over the years when it was in the council. That's a reporting mechanism. What we need is something, and as you heard what I said earlier, about all that energy out there in the community, you need to bring that in. Now, we've already got that for the Charitable Trust. That seems to be working quite well. That's a fundraising mechanism, and you've got all these lovely young people out there being concerned about the farm, putting that energy in there. We still need to know what the farm's doing. I'm taking Jason's point earlier, but where it goes and what it does. If you set up a company or a charitable company, or one of those mechanisms, or even within the council, there is other mechanisms we could set up in the council, you know, like a school governing, but I did say to somebody earlier about that, something like that. You still need to have a structure within which it all sits, with a purpose. And that's where Jason's view about what are we doing is important. You need to set aims and objectives up. So that goes back to Anthony here. You got that one, haven't you? The governance arrangements.
You did mention, Anthony, about looking for some expertise to help the council move forward with the farm. I'd like to suggest that we do look for an outside expertise or consultant from outside the borough, that we agree some terms and conditions, and that the scrutiny committee be the lead body, and the task and finish group be the lead link, and that this consultant or expert reports to them for them to look at it and come back to us. Because I think they've done such a wonderful job in the beginning, and I think they should be given the task again of taking this forward with an outside expert. I'm sure we can find the money. We've got various pots of money that we have invest to save. So I think that is something that we should be doing.
Right, yeah, just to move us a bit along on the substantive question of what the future of the farm is and what we do. One of the commonalities I've been hearing from members' contributions today is on the key recommendation for me, which is number 2, which is reinvesting in the farm. So it's been a variation on opinions on how that takes place, but I personally support using the surplus land to reinvest in the farm. Now, what we reinvest in and what we choose to do is again the substantive question, but the answer to that has to bring in revenue. Whatever it is, it has to bring in revenue, because this is the key issue that we've got here today, and we'll always be facing this. It'll be Sisyphus, the myth of Sisyphus. Otherwise, every single year we'd be revisiting this, and we have to definitively address this today or this year. The other issue is that I don't feel that moving to a vending machine type model is at all desirable. I would prefer to see an exploration of perhaps offering up that cafe to a social group or a private company, local private company, as a way of promoting them. It's an excellent place. It brings in loads of footfall. It's business promotion, and I think that's what we need to do more of. So those are my views, and hopefully they've moved on the debate a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree in fact, I would agree with all the sentiments expressed here, because they are laudable sentiments. And in a perfect world, it would be great to garner all of these and put them in one big pot and say, this is what we're doing, this is where the money comes from, and this is what we're going to spend it on. Unfortunately, we're not in a position of doing that. I think there are 2 key issues that I picked up on. Number 1, the 7 recommendations coming from the scrutiny team are all laudable, and they're all, superficially at least, they're all workable, but as yet no one's costed them, so we don't know how much that is likely to help. But I do know that even if we took all of those into account and costed them up, it might very well equate with what we need to save in this current round. But that does not obviate the necessity to go back again, as the leader said earlier on, go back again next year, the year after, and so on and so forth. So the way forward is to regenerate, to self-finance. How we do that, I don't know. I'm not an economic or a financial expert, but I'm sure that there are those about who could possibly advise us. I'm not that keen on getting in outside help, because outside help usually costs quite a lot, and it's usually a stick to beat the council with ultimately. I believe that the scrutiny team and the subgroup of the scrutiny team, the task and finish group, have done a pretty solid job, and I'm warned that it's a cross-party thing that came to a unanimous decision about these things. But the other big thing that acts as a stumbling block at the moment, in my view, is what we want that tract of land to be used for. I'm not in favour of picking away and jettisoning and eschewing some aspects of what happens at the farm at the moment, particularly the educational experts, because I believe that Mandy hit the nail on the head, and others who commented on the educational value of this piece of land. I think that's spot on, and it must be preserved. But there are other elements of the farm that could very well be identified by other people as being far more important again. A discussion needs to be had on precisely what we want out of that piece of land. But I think underpinning all of the deliberations is that whatever we do, we must find a way that enables a self-financing that piece of land, because otherwise we are going to be back here next year, the year after, and the year after that. But it seems to me that in the short term we need to find out the costings of these 7 recommendations. We also need to know as quickly as possible which direction we want to be in. Do we want to scale down all the activities at the farm to a point where they are perhaps not that worthy of pursuit? It might be one way of saving money, but is it going to be effective and productive in terms of what it's set up to be? I will lay my cards on the table now. My major concern is that we shouldn't be losing the educational benefits of that particular piece of land.
Thank you. Can I say, right, I don't sit on the cleaner communities. I've not sat on this task and finish group, so I've come to this fairly new, not really knowing, not having the background information that other members have here. But I do have some issues really with the recommendations, and that revolves around 3, 4 and 7. I've got a problem with 3 because I think we are discussing now what we want the farm to be, whether it's going to be an education resource, a tourist resource or whatever. If we go ahead with changes to the staffing structure at this point and then decide that we are changing the nature of the farm 6 months down the line, we are going to find ourselves in difficulties. I agree with Dave Daniels. I think we should be getting in some outside people at a rent to run the catering within there, because I can remember we used to have catering facilities in all our leisure centres. They never made any money. We have a. I was very cruel one day. Somebody was talking to me about the council and why it doesn't make any money. I said, I sometimes think that if the council had the facility to print £10 notes, it would cost them £11 to print them. It's unkind, I know, but I think we don't have that financial expertise within the council. So I think what we really need to do is not go down to vending machines. I think what we need to do is explore bringing someone in to run that at a rent and a small profit for the organisation. And I think the same thing that was said about 3, about staffing changes, I think I say about 7. I'm not sure at all that this would fit in education. But until we decide exactly what we're going to do with it, I'm not sure that we should be moving it. You know, we need to know where we're going with it before we start jigging it about, because there's no point in moving it into neighbourhoods planning, public protection, and then deciding we want it in some sort of more community-based area of the council.
The question of where it sits has come up a couple of times. I'd remind people that it currently sits within social care because community services went within social care. The farm itself hasn't been moved, just the whole of communities has been moved in. And yes, I see the point Hugh means. We don't want it to be sort of faced off against other services in that area. The trouble is, wherever it sits amongst the council's budget, there will be other calls on the money that will be attention. I think that's unavoidable. But the point you make is welcome. Any other points before I come back?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll just come back on that. I take on board what you're saying, that it would be the same in other departments, that you're looking at cutting A or cutting B, but social services is far more headline grabbing and dramatic if you're actually reducing the numbers of social care staff. But anyway, what I wanted to say was that the point that hadn't come out in the recommendations was 12 months ago, 18 months ago, the whole of the Oversight and Scrutiny Committee were vehemently against any land sale at all. We wanted to protect the farm in its entirety. And I've got to say that this has been over a period of time that this has come in as a last resort measure in realising that if we sell off a portion of the assets, that it would and could be used to protect the bulk of the farm. So I just want to say that the position has changed over that 12 months because we did not want that, and that was not up for grabs in terms of when it was put out for tender. Because obviously, if they felt I think there would have been a lot more interest in it at the time that it was put out for tender. If it was in the original proposal that they could sell off 12 acres or 10 acres of land, and obviously the goalposts have moved since then. We're now concluding reluctantly that this is the only way that we feel that we can secure the safeguard the farm going forwards. But obviously legislation has changed as well. We've had Future Generations Act, wellbeing, environmental issues are coming to the fore, not just in the Environmental Act in Wales, but globally, and a lot of publicity around climate change. Scotland are declaring a climate emergency, so all of those things need to be taken into consideration. The environmental issues going forward as well. But it was very much falling on the sword, really, to sale of the land, permit new housing development, on the strict proviso that that secured the long-term future of the farm.
Because I want to pick up on what he was saying. On this business of moving the budget from the social services portfolio into the neighbourhood services, we interviewed Keith Rutherford, the head of social services, and he was quite clear that the pressures he faces are far greater than any other portfolio head. Looked after children springs to mind straight away. So the reason we want to move it quite clearly is it gives greater protection, because that's the most uncertain budget within the council. So that was a strong recommendation. And in terms of the we don't really, well, we made this recommendation about vending, and the reason we did that, we had to come up with savings of 200k. Now, over the years, we've tried and tried when it's in-house just to break even with that catering facility, and it's failed. And the prices are going up, as Ron pointed out, and we can't keep putting the prices up. So we came up with that vending option because we didn't see any other way of saving money. And we looked at other places. We looked at Llantarnam Grange. They run catering facilities and they lose money. So it's really difficult. And it's great to say we'll bring private contractors in, but staff have got entitlements. There'd be 2p involved. So it's not an easy decision to make. So we were wrestling with all these sorts of problems. So and just clarifying and picking up. And on the sale of the land, he was absolutely right. We don't want to sell any of the land, but some of this outlying land was just used for grazing. So our philosophy was we want to protect the main hub, and we were clear about that for all the reasons that members have raised today. And the recommendation, we actually said strong recommendation. I think it was Councillor Thomas initially suggested that if we sold the land, it had to be reinvested. And when we finally met before we made the recommendations, we changed the wording. If we're going to sell any land, it has a strong recommendation that it's reinvested in the farm, because we don't want to sell the land, but we want to protect this community hub.
That whole business about the green wedge round Cwmbran, which it in effect it's a park, I'm very reluctant to go down this line as well, personally as a shadow chair, but that's a debate that we've had on there quite a lot. And if you look at, I think it was the first and the second scrutiny on it, that debate took place there. And the Llantarnam one is different because you've actually got the land down there, the boating lake. But when you come down to the green wedge around Cwmbran town centre, this land is there. So we have great reluctance to any of that, and it's a debate that's been had on the Shadow Board for years. And there was some thought that it was a covenant on it, but there isn't. So that debate is one we've had long on that one. The nucleus land would not want to see any of that go, because there is potential land there. It's almost SSI standard, so that's the other reason for the farm being there. It protects land that is very good quality. And if you go into the land that we use as a forest school in there, look at that quality of that land, untouched, incredibly good. Some reasons for what farm does in that direction, environmental standard stuff. Now, what I wanted to say, which nothing to do with this, to be quite honest, was I've been on several things in other places, and I'm suggesting if we need to get out of this impasse, maybe, we've had a seminar today. I'm thinking in terms of the governance issues and what the farm does, maybe a study day or something like that might be a way forward for us to look at this particular issue, with all members coming on and having a look at this issue. It does, and the other thing I've been asked by the staff, because they were concerned about this today, and had quite a long conversation in my role there, is maybe it might be a good idea if members came down, which the Task and Finish group, I don't know how have most members been down at the farm and had a look at work lately. They wanted to put an open invitation, and maybe if we had a study day there, looked at those issues and came down the farm, that might be a suggestion, Anthony. I think it's a very strong one.
Thank you, Chair. In regarding the two parcels of land, that they total equates to 40 acres, 50 acres, as in 40 and 10. What's the remaining land left acreage, and what can it be used for?
So the remaining land left, from what I described earlier, would be the centre hub of where the actual farm is. So that's the area where obviously all the beneficiaries come and use, the schools come and use, and the animals are actually based. So I think approximately that's around about 30 acres. Yeah.
So,
thanks, Chair. I think, I might be wrong, I normally am, we've had the farm since 1992, so that's 27 years. And to have the farm for 27 years and still not know what the farm is or what it's supposed to be doing within the community is quite shocking to me. As far as I can see, being part of the same scrutiny committee, the council have allowed that farm to deteriorate, and have done for many, many years. It's the council's responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, and the community, to put that farm back into a place where people can go and use it for all the different reasons that it's there for now. The very fact that the council doesn't know what it wants, does the council even want the farm? Because if you do, then I think it's your responsibility, our responsibility, to make sure that we save that farm for the community, for the residents of Torvine. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's as simple as that. You've allowed it to fail, you've allowed it to deteriorate, you need to sort it out.
Can I just say it is an educational facility as well as people going there for days out, and can't it be many things? Does it have to be one thing? The farm covers many, many areas, but I think education is the main thing that it does for people who don't own farms, who don't have much green outside their house. It's an educational facility. And can I just say something for the way the farm is at the moment? It has many, many, many visitors on many days. Sometimes, like I said, they're queuing down the roads, and I know because I go there every week. And the experience you get in the cafe, going around with the people who help you with the chicks, is amazing. The people who work there do such amazing things. They're so good with the children and the families. And they're so good with those children who have behaviour problems, who can't be educated in our schools, who from schools across not just our county but others are failing because of behaviour problems. They're so good at taking some of those children and helping them to get back on track. It's an amazing educational facility.
The figures bear that out as well. The problem that we have at the farm isn't that it doesn't attract people in, it's that the costs go up year on year. That's the thing, and I think it's worth saying that we're not trying to detract from the work of the staff who've been tremendous in what they do. We just want to do what we can to support them better to allow it to continue. Cathy, do you want?
As a family, we absolutely love the farm. We have an annual pass and we go regularly. I think a lot of the problems with the farm are down to there's not a lot to do there if it's raining, and we're in Wales. You know, let's be fair, it rains a lot here. And there's very, very little to do. We've been on there, we went there one year in a rain, the end of February, on a rainy day, and there were 4 of us, and we made the grand total 8 people that had been there that day. We were the only people on the tractor ride. We just went around twice because there was nobody else. And the other people had left. We were it. We were the only people in the farm. Now, there are lots of other farms locally. There's Kevin Mabley, there's Raglan Farm Park. They have enormous indoor playing areas, bouncy castles, soft play. There's so much to do indoors that you can go there on a rainy day. I think our farm is let down by the fact that if it's raining, there's very, very little to actually do there. And I think that's something that could definitely be improved on.
Yeah, just to Faye's point, really, it's not as simple as just saying it's an educational asset. I think that's a benefit of what it currently does. But if we're saying it's an educational asset, then I would expect the education department to pay for it and treat it in the same way that they would a school. And we don't expect revenue from a school. So we're saying which would transfer £700,000 worth of running costs into the educational department, which is obviously unsustainable. All we're trying to say is we need the benefits of having an educational facility whilst making it a sustainable going concern. And that's the model I think we need to get to.
I think, yes, you're right, we should look at how we're going to run it in the future, but there's many problems that have more than one answer, and this is a facility that has more than one use. It's educational, it's also for tourists, it's also ecological. There's so many things that the farm is at the moment that we can expand on, I know, and I am a little bit worried, just taking this further, if we get rid of the grazing land, how is that going to affect the animals that are already there?
Thank you, Anthony, for letting me come back in again. Just very quickly picking up on the point that Jason made and other members made about the educational side of it. It's a kind of a sunk cost, because how do you cost what it delivers in terms of assisting those kids, especially the ones with disabilities? But picking up from the point Jason made, if it's determined going forwards that the educational side of it is to be retained, rather than transferring the whole lot to the educational budget, maybe there should be a contribution from the educational budget towards maintaining the educational aspect of the farm going forwards. And I don't know if that's something that any consideration has been given to.
We can certainly ask. I can already hear the response coming from the Education Department, ringing in my ears, along with Nigel ringing in my ears about why we're pledging to spend extra money when he wanted to save it. But that's just the financial situation we're in, isn't it? We've unfortunately got £19.5 million more to save over the next 3 years, and we therefore have to have conversations we'd rather not have. And I think this is one of them. Janet, did you want to come in?
Jay. I think the Task and Finish group have done a remarkable job in such a short time. But listening to everything, and most of the questions that I was going to raise have already been raised. So it's just a comment. I don't think, unless we get the governance of this facility right, we're never going to move forward, because we've all got our own views. And I think this should be established first and foremost.
Okay. Right, there's more hands going up now. David, Jason, Stuart.
Yeah. Thank Jason for his timely interventions in terms of offering up suggestions for what the Education Department should do. I'm rather inclined to support what the leader has said, that that would be a ridiculous position to put the Education Service in. But I think, Jason, you're missing the point. It isn't educational because there is one particular element of what goes on down there that is precisely and specifically educational. It is educational because of the sum total of everything that goes on in the farm. That's the educational value, in the same way that there is a social value to having the farm, in the same way as there's an agricultural value, in the same way that there's a plethora of values that come out of that. There is a value to education as a consequence of the farm continuing in the way it is. The big problem is we can't afford readily to do just that, so we have to take rational decisions about how best to go forward in terms of financing the farm to make sure that the benefits that accrue from that farm and its existence at the moment continue in some form.
Thank you, Chair. If I can come back on the questions or observations about education, we did meet with Dermot McChrystal, and he really doesn't see that his comes under his remit whatsoever. He doesn't find it as an educational part of his educational department. So, and we questioned him thoroughly on that, and he wouldn't recognise it as part of his education remit.
Yeah, very quickly, what's the Welsh Assembly view of the farm, and are they prepared? I'm sure they're going to say that they're in favour of it and want to keep it open, but would they be prepared to put their hands in their pockets to keep it open?
They certainly haven't to date, but we can always keep asking, because you can only get told no, so I'm more than happy to put forward that idea.
You know, yeah. It's such an old chestnut, this about education, social services, et al. In the former life, I used to run a play bus. In the former life, I also used to run a community centre. And when you start getting hung up on social services and you get hung up on education, who's going to contribute from your budget? It was one of the problems that the voluntary sector always had. Who was going to pay for what? The community farm is now sat in this problem of who. They are all responsible, because if you look at that farm, it's environmental, so you can have neighbourhood services in there, it's educational, social service, and they all comment on it. It's not any one, that is the problem. And I don't want a bit of this, I don't want a bit of it. It's everybody in the council. That's why, in one way, when you see community farms and city farms and all the rest of them, they tend to be out in the voluntary sector. It's a much easier model. We unfortunately got it in a council, and you have to live with that fact at the moment. And that expertise, if we want to know on this sort of thing, either, as you rightly said, either is commercial or it's in the voluntary sector. Go and have a look at Bristol, London. There's lots and lots of these places all over the place. The experts are there. There's a national organisation that can advise you on this. It's called the... Pardon? No, they're not an expert on it. No, the point I'm trying to say is the experts on this are the National Association of Leisure Trusts and City Farms. There's a lot of experts in that organisation on this very subject. That they are there, but the problem that we're hearing from members about where it sits and what it does, I'm pretty certain some of the people from that organisation to advise us on things about what we should do and why they are there. In fact, I have talked to them in the past. So those sort of people are paid to in fact, Sally talks to those people quite regularly.
We've talked a lot about the fact that we need more money going forward, and we know that the County Council is strapped for cash, as are all county councils up and down the country. And at the moment, we've got the government that decided we should have the big society working. So I can't understand why there's not a philanthropic, if I've said the word right, entrepreneur out there who would give his money and his time or just his expertise to the farm to help us develop a good business plan going forward. Perhaps for no cost, because they make such massive profits.
I very much hope they're listening, and if anyone knows one, then they're more than welcome to. I'll give them a free hug or a cup of tea or anything they want. You're right. This is the trouble, isn't it? I can imagine any finance colleagues watching this will probably knock in my door afterwards and saying, "Look, we need to save money. You're talking about spending money." Sometimes, I think Colette mentioned, you do have to invest to save, but we are in a financial situation, as are all councils, where we need to look at it. I would say there's two potential outs there, isn't there? I think Welsh Government approach is one, some kind of philanthropic funding is one, but maybe the most collective one out there is if we all go and mention to as many people as we know, please go and visit the farm this spring, because if we could just boost the takings a bit, then that wouldn't half help this equation. Before I close, anyone else want to come in? Quick.
Thank you, Chair. Listening to all the comments here and writing a few things down, you're saying that the cafe is self-sufficient, so I can't see any point in closing the cafe and putting machines in. No? No, right, okay, stand corrected. Now, being a businessman myself, if I lose anything on any of my ideas, I close it. If it's a loss, sentiment doesn't come into it. But if we really believe that we can make a go of that place there, sell the land, invest in it. But don't invest in there if you think a couple of years' time we're going to be in this situation again, where we're going to say, right, we wasted how many thousands of pounds by selling our land. Once it's gone, it's gone. Now, to divert a bit, there's a local rugby club who sold their, not Pontypool, who sold their land a few years ago, and they have now got rid of all our money, and they got nothing collateral at all. But I believe that sentiment has come into here today because we as a council, all parties, decided or recommended that we take £200,000 off from the farm. Now everybody is making excuses, not excuses, but coming up with their own ideas. I know myself, to get money today is hard, very hard. And that's why I say, sentiment, if it comes into it, it comes into it. But if we honestly believe we can get that thing, you've got to sell it. I don't give my stuff away, I sell it. By selling it, I advertise it. I put something on there. I attract people in. It's no good going there. I took my children down there. I took my grandchildren down there. But now, it's the same now as it was 20 years ago. Get some special events on there. Get something in there, sell it. We can do it. We don't need these experts coming from, it's like Bristol and London. How big is Bristol? How big is London? We're in Torfaen. We haven't got the millions of people out there that London have got and the tens of thousands of people in Bristol got. You're not going to get it. What's people going to come here? They're going to come over the bridge to see the farm? Sell it. You know, by opening it up on weekends, what are they going to do the 5 days, during the 5 days? That's when the school children are in. School children are on the weekend. They come in during the first 5 days. You need somebody, and there's got to be somebody in here. I'm not saying in this chamber here, but there's got to be somebody in here who can sell that farm. If we honestly believe we can make a go of it, we can go of it. Sell the land, invest into there, but sell it. Don't keep it as it was. Don't put, say, £250,000 into there if we're going to be like this in 5 years' time. Sell it, advertise it, get things going on in there. It's like the railway at the top, they've got something on all the time. They generate it. But let's make an effort. I either say, that's it today, sentiment rules. With me as a businessman, I'd say, right, close it tomorrow. That's the way we've got to do. We can't feed a cash cow. But if we're going to make a concerted effort, pull the money in, but advertise it. Let's get it going. But listen to everybody, and yeah, we all want it to exist. Maybe not be in the same format, and it's not going to be like Bristol, it's not going to be like London, it's not going to be like Kevin Mabley, it's not the places I visit where you can spend all day. You don't want to go down there with school children, and after an hour they're all bored. You've got the same over, what's the name over there? The haunted house. You take people over there, after an hour, children, they've had enough, they've seen the house, that's it. Get something going down there. I don't know what. It's not my expertise. You tell me about coaches, I can tell you what to do down there. But get somebody in there, keep it all going. Get people, the children generating down there, have a look around. It's like they said, they got that thing from the Ebervale, the dragon, which came off the festival. They said it's not working down there. You know, you've got a clock in Newport, which came from the same place. Let's generate, make our minds up what we're going to do. If you're going to invest in it, don't invest for the sake of investing. Let's get something going on it.
Yeah. Can I thank the chairman and the committee that have worked on the farm for the last couple of months, but I feel myself that this should have been done 10 years ago. Instead of money for the farm going through the budget, being it bamboozled through the budget, and no discussions on it. The independent group have asked for discussions on the farm year after year after year, ever since I've been here, and I've been here 12 years. No, we've never had it. It have always come to the meeting in March, to the budget meeting in March. The Labour Party group put their hands up and put the budget through, and you know, this discussion should have gone on about 12 years ago. But I thank you for it now.
Yeah, just to say, there is a lot going on in the farm. There's lots of events. You've got the Halloween events. We can go around on haunted tractor rides and things. And I know they have tried really hard over the last few years. Cafe, I don't agree with the vending machines. I think we should have some sort of cafe there where we can have children's parties. I know the kids used to book in where they can do the food online. We could have an enterprise where we get a training scheme where kids are doing hospitality courses at colleges and go in and possibly run the cafes. But can I just end, I think if we've got any suggestions, feed them back to Peter and the Task and Finish group going forward with the costings. With Dermot and Crystal saying it wasn't under his remit, I agree, but I also don't think it's under Keith Rutherford's, because when he's dealing with looked after children and he's got to look at the costings of a repair of a tractor, I don't think it doesn't fit under that remit either. So, but I do think it's really important to get a message out to the public that we are not the baddie, that we don't want to just shut the farm down. We are looking at all options. We are getting a lot of negativity at the moment, and I think we need to just work and get our message out there that we are looking at everything.
Well said, Mandy, and I do take the point that Peter made about the funding and the particular reason why social care is not the place in the view of the committee, and I'll make sure I'll take that back. Just like to thank everyone for coming along today. I think it's one of the best attended seminars we've had, certainly this term, and I think that says a lot. I also should have given apologies from Alan Jones, who's away, who can't be here, who would have been chairing this meeting, but I thought it was right that I stepped in as leader to do it, just so no one says I always give myself the easy gigs. And I also should have welcomed our visitors at the back, two distinguished former members in John Cunningham and Bob Wellington. So thanks for coming along today, and I look forward to having further discussions about this issue.
Sorry, just one quick one. Just one quick question, Leader. What happens from today going forward? We haven't made any resolutions whatsoever. We've got a farm here which is costing us £800,000 a year. We've got income coming in. There's a deficit. We kind of need to know what direction we're moving in forward.
Well, the first point that we need to resolve is we will get costings of the 7 recommendations. At that point, I propose I'll come back to you as members and then ask you how you feel we should go forward there. Because you're right, we can't, and I think the points that have been made were very pertinent, we can't just do nothing here. We have to take some action in one way or other. We can't just allow things to drift. So I accept that. As soon as the costings are ready, I propose that if I send a message to all members, and if we need to get back in this forum to discuss it again, then I'm more than happy to facilitate that.